So all the blood supply comes in through the apex of the tooth, which is the deepest part in the bone of the tooth. And so if there's no bone around that, or no blood supply, or the tooth even gets moved a little bit, it's enough to lose that blood supply, because all these little bits right here are the blood supply, and that's it.
I see.
So if that part fractures, then there's no blood supply, and the tooth will die, and then it becomes infected, because 100% of the time, if a tooth doesn't have blood supply or it dies itself, then it's going to get infected.
I see.
So that's probably what's making this not heal, is because it's just chronically infected. So,
oh man, he's been sick all this time. I've had him on antibiotics.
And it's kind of a band-aid on the issue. It's not really going to fix it until we get that tooth out or do a root canal. But with him, I would say extract it, most likely. We'll determine that obviously once he's under anesthesia and can get an image of him. But at least, we'll know something needs to be done with this tooth, or we're never going to get it to heal. And so we'll get this tooth most likely taken out. We'll kind of see how things look once we have him under anesthesia. But a couple different methods for us to fix are something called an acrylic splint. And so this is an upside down picture, but this is the splint here. It's kind of this bite guard type material. And then there's wires underneath it that we put kind of around the teeth as well. And so like x-ray wise, it looks like this. So these are the wires around it, and then this is the splint that we use to hold the splint in place. So I don't know if he'll be a candidate, because really we need to have at least 1 or 2 teeth behind this tooth. They're usually not big teeth, and we don't know if he even has them or what they look like. So if those teeth aren't there, then that's not a good option either. We may have to do something like this, where we put wires in to kind of hold those 2 pieces together, which this one is it's chronic. You can see this is kind of a rounded edge. Like they're not like that other x-ray where it's a nice sharp edge. They're nice and rounded. So this is a chronic fracture that we were trying to put together. So what will happen sometimes with these is they don't heal. Like it won't be like bone to bone healing. Like it won't look like a solid piece of bone. It'll look like this, but it will be nice and stable, because it's kind of formed a bunch of fibrous tissue around it, kind of like a joint. So it will have a little motion, but nothing like what he has now. And honestly, even with that, as long as we can get all those teeth taken, address the teeth that are around this, he will be a happy camper. Even with a fibrous union, he will be like a new dog. Yes. Okay, so it's a good solution for him, especially because of how chronic this has been. Like we don't even know how long.
Time.
Right. So
somebody told me, well, it's been broke that long, it's not going to hurt.
No, it's very no. Clearly, you saw he was not a fan of me looking there, and he was such a good boy for letting me take a look too. So that's an option, and then another option we will do sometimes, depending on the patient, is we'll put these buttons on them. So there's a button under the chin, and there's a button on either side of them, and they're all connected with a suture. So if you've heard of people when they break their jaw, they like wire their jaw shut. It's similar to that, but he's able to open his mouth and lap up food and water, just not fully open it. And so it really limits the motion on that area, and then it lets it kind of heal, because it's really not moving as much as it would be if he could open his mouth fully.
So it would heal naturally.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Correct. So we just have to kind of see what he's a candidate for, to see what what he's got in there for us to fix it. You know, so sometimes you have to get a little creative with jaw fractures, because none of the situations may be ideal to fix it, but we need to find the most ideal for what he has going on. You know, what
is the normal price for all these?
It depends. So sometimes it's on the lower thousands, sometimes it's on the higher thousands, because we'll address everything going on in his mouth at the same time. So that's one option. There's the buttons, the wire, and then the splint are kind of the most common things that we would do to fix it. We don't typically like to use plates on dogs if we can avoid it. Only because they have so many roots and they don't have a lot of jawbone to place that. So we can't really put a plate where this gray line is, because that's where all the blood supply and the nerve are. We can't put it through there. We also can't put it where these roots are. And you can see, even on this dog, there's a root right next to that tooth. There's that one, that one, that one. There's really not much wiggle room. And you can't put the screws through the roots, because otherwise you're going to kill that tooth, and it's chronic pain.
And you did see his root was exposed, which is not good. It's got to hurt.
It is 100% painful. Yes.
Poor baby.
I know it. I hate it for him too. So So the plates aren't really a great solution most of the time. They've come up with some new plates that are smaller and maybe.
Oh, it must be that light.
Is that better?
Okay. Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So some plates you can still use, but they're just, it depends on the situation. So we'll kind of wait and see what things look like. We try to not use them if at all possible, just because of the challenges based on they don't have a lot of bone, the teeth are in the way, the nerve blood supply are in the way. So we try to come up with other methods to make it heal that way.
Okay.
So. And sometimes we'll take the tooth out, and he doesn't really have a big nose, but like a normal, not one with a smush nose.
He had his mouth wide open. I said that would have been a good one.
Exactly. Sometimes we'll take out the bad tooth, and there may not be a whole lot we can do other than close the soft tissue and then put them in a little muzzle big enough that they can still eat and drink with it on. And then that may be our best option too. So we kind of play it by ear depending on what we can get away with. But if we can get that tooth out, he will feel a ton better, I'm sure.